This is Due South on WUNC News. I'm Leonida Inge. We all have a story to tell. Some of us are better at it than others. Jeff Polish founded the Monti in 2008.
It is such a magical moment. And I am, we're almost 20 years in, as you said, and it never gets old for me. For me, it's incredible.
Tips and advice from top North Carolina storytellers like Milbre Burch, the 2025 MC of the Old North State Storytelling Festival.
When she came to claim her dress, the spoiled rich girl did not even give her condolences to the grieving family.
And the latest on what slam storyteller Ray Christian is saying on Due South. The news is next. From the American Tobacco Historic District in downtown Durham, this is Due South on WUNC News. I'm Leonida Inge. The oral storytelling tradition has been around for more years than we can count. The act of collective memory, passing down cultural values, history, or just bringing laughter to a room can be spellbinding. Jeff Polish would know. He brought live storytelling on stage to the Triangle almost 20 years ago.
I never believed in ghosts until my dead father showed up at my sister's wedding. That's quite a line. In fact, this is the first line from a story by Durham-based photographer Alex Berner during a workshop I taught years ago. The moment he delivered that line in the workshop, I was completely in, and so was everyone else in the class. In fact, it's such an interesting opening that I've been talking about it for years.
That's Jeff Polish. He teaches storytelling workshops to interested individuals, business leaders, and he trains folks for the live storytelling show, The Monti. What you probably wouldn't guess based on what you know about him so far is that he kicked off his career as a, molecular cell biologist? Yes, really, Jeff Polish. You've got a lot of explaining to do. Welcome to Due South.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, Jeff, tell us how your love, of science led you to a new career in storytelling. How big was that leap?
Well, it was not as big of a leap as you might think. I mean, yes, it feels like they're on opposite ends of the spectrum, but when I was being trained as a scientist, I was earning a PhD, and I was like, how do I get out of this? Granted, I love science. Don't get me wrong. I love it. But when I was earning that degree, I was like, I just don't think that I could commit the rest of my life to this. Sitting at a research bench all day, throughout the night. I mean, it's just tireless, thankless work. But I will tell you this, when it came time to giving talks about my work, nobody was better. I loved telling my story, telling the story of my science. I was able to, at least find a passion for communication during that time. So I finished my degree and I went into teaching science. And we're talking teaching ninth grade biology, which is a challenge in and of itself.
They don't listen.
Well, they listened when I was able to pair the content with a relatable story, with something that they could really attach themselves to. Like, for example, when I was teaching photosynthesis, I talked about when I was a kid and I was afraid that nuclear holocaust was just on the horizon. The Russians were going to drop bombs on us. My friend and I built a fallout shelter in a sewer.
Crazy.
And we brought plants down into that fallout shelter so that we could breathe, and the carbon dioxide from our exhaling would then be taken up by the plant, and it would be this cycle. And that's how we launched into photosynthesis. And the kids were just completely captivated. So it was storytelling that gave me sort of the entryway into teaching science content.
I thought you were going to say you taught about the birds and the bees. That got their attention.
I was forbidden, yeah. And quite frankly, I'm really not qualified to talk about that.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, I find, though, you are quite passionate about storytelling. And do you remember I was one of your students about a decade ago?
I do remember that. It was unforgettable.
Oh,
You're a
save
great
it,
student.
save it. No, I thought I was a great storyteller. You know, I'm on public radio, so I think I can tell stories. But no, until I met you, and I learned not only can I not sometimes tell a great story, I can't memorize. I didn't know how to memorize it. I didn't know how to put parts of that story in order that would make sense, that would captivate an audience. Maybe you can give our listeners a few tips, you know, like how do you begin, you know, telling a great story?
Oh, yeah. So this is a very loaded question. I mean, we could talk about this for hours, days. But when I'm working with people, I ask them, what is this story that you have mean? What is it actually about? And that's different from what happened, because most people understand their memory. They understand what happened in the life experience that they want to share. But interpreting that life experience is an essential part of building a compelling story. What does it mean? And when I'm really asking that question, in order to sort of derive meaning, you have to ask yourself, who was I before the thing happened, before that life experience? And then who was I after that life experience? And if I'm changed as a result of the thing that happened, well, that's where we can derive meaning. How did that event change me? And if you can answer that question, then we can start to really build a compelling story. That's a huge thing that I work on with people, because the people that want to share stories publicly at our show, the Monti, they know that the things that the life experience that they've had is interesting, but they may not have reflected upon those experiences enough to really understand why it's so interesting. And that's part of the work that we do together. And is an essential part of telling a great story.
I'm speaking with Jeff Polish. He's the creator and executive director of the Monti, a live storytelling event in the Research Triangle region. Can you believe the Monti is almost 20 years old?
It's incredible. It was, honestly, it was something that I did to pass the time while I was looking for a teaching job. I thought, hey, I've always wanted to, create a space where people can share stories, so I'm going to do it. So I just created this space. I went to a restaurant. I asked them if they would donate their private event space in the back. They did. I advertised it. I got on public radio to, talk about it or put an article in the paper, and people showed up. And after that first event, what we realized is that people were craving this type of connection that the simple act of, sharing your life experience that could create, like actually testifying to your own truth, sharing your truth. People want to hear that.
That's why I want to know, like, what's your biggest joy with these events? For example, I've attended several over the years, and I think I enjoy when I see someone up there who I wouldn't expect seeing up there, and then I see their family like in tears in the audience. Like they didn't even know that that person had it in them to stand up there and actually tell a story. And sometimes it's a pretty dramatic and emotional story.
Absolutely. I think that the greatest joy that I get when I'm at an event or when I'm helping the storytellers to prepare their stories and quote unquote performance, because it doesn't really feel like a performance. It's such an honest moment. The greatest joy is when that person is on stage authentically sharing something that can't be seen. And this is an important part of what makes storytelling such a compelling medium, is that it's one thing to narrate events to other people. It's another thing to go deep inside yourself and talk about what motivates them, who they are, to share part of their identity. These are the things that we don't share when we're out in the real world. They stay hidden. But when you create a forum like the Monti or other forums where people are being really personal and vulnerable, they're revealing things that other people wouldn't know about. Like you just talked about family members in the audience hearing something for the very first time. To me, that's magic. To me, that's where it all happens, because the people in the audience are listening to this person reveal something so tender, so fragile, so vulnerable, and they're simultaneously thinking about their own life experience that might line up with that, their own identity that might line up with that. And when they feel aligned with the person that's speaking, that's where community starts to be built. The other thing that happens at these events is that nobody's saying anything in the audience. I mean, they might be clapping, they're very quiet. They might be laughing, they might be sighing, but nobody's interrupting. But during intermission or even after the show, the storytellers are descended upon by the audience.
Like they're rock stars.
They're rock stars.
Yes.
And it feels like a receiving line of people that want to talk to those people who just testified, who just revealed. And what they're saying to the storyteller is, that reminded me of a time when this happened, or that reminded me of how I was scared when this happened. And it is such a unifying experience. And the storyteller feels like I've gone for years feeling so alone in this experience. And now I realize that other people have shared experience. And the audience feels like, oh my God, that's me up there. That is no different from how I felt when I experienced that. It is such a magical moment. And I am, we're almost 20 years in, as you said, and it never gets old for me. For me, it's incredible. I'm not retiring anytime soon.
Don't retire. Well, Jeff Polish, thanks for your testimonial and all that you've put into the Monti over these years. Jeff Polish is the creator and executive director of the Monti. Again, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Well, more storytelling after the break. You're listening to Due South. This is Due South on WUNC News. I'm Leonida Inge. If you haven't shared a sweet iced tea or a glass of lemonade on a front porch, telling stories with friends lately, well, I feel bad for you. But I might not blame you because of this southern heat. We're talking about storytelling today, from the oral traditions of ages past to the current rise of professional storytelling events and even competitions. Let's listen to this story told at the Carolina Theater in Durham at the Monti. It's a live storytelling competition hosted by Jeff Polish. This storyteller is Janice Matias.
It didn't matter, because it wasn't the fact that I got 15 minutes of fame. It was the fact that it was my passion that got me the opportunity of the 15 minutes of fame. My passion has taken me places and to experience that I would have never, ever imagined.
That was Janice Matias live at the Monti, telling a story from her life. The oral and written tradition of passing down family stories is something Milbre Burch knows about. She's a master storyteller and a playwright, and served as the 2025 MC for the Old North State Storytelling Festival in Cary. Milbre, welcome to Due South.
Thank you. Delighted to be here.
Well, Milbre, when did you know you could tell a story? Did someone in your family sit down and tell you something so moving that it stuck?
Well, I will admit that I come from a family of salespeople, so of course we have a lot of talkers in my household. But I think it was everything I consumed. TV shows and movies, the comics in the Sunday newspaper, my brother's comic books, the literature I was exposed to thanks to my grandmother, the chalkboard I used to draw stories in my childhood room. Barbie led me to a lot of different stories to act out in my room and out in my backyard. I froze Barbie once in a shoebox so that she could be dumped out in a block of ice and Ken could come and date a prehistoric woman. So I already thought in stories. That led to my being a writer, I think, and a talker, but I believe what led me to storytelling was the fairy tales.
I know you're a lover of fairy tales. Do you have a favorite story, a favorite fairy tale?
Well, I do have a lot of tales that I love from around the world because when I became officially a storyteller in 1980, I really wanted to bring the world to the audiences that I was speaking to. So I probably have a favorite story from this country and a favorite story from that country and a favorite story from a writer because I have also used written material in my performance work. And I do tell the occasional story from my own life. I do tell original fairy tales that I write, thanks to my many years of being mentored by Jane Yolen, an American author. And I also tell theatrical monologues that I write and perform.
Now, you just introduced me really to Jane Yolen. I had never heard of her, but she had so many books, but she was a mentor. She was a muse. How did she help you with your storytelling?
Well, first of all, her book fell off the shelf at me in the public library in Providence, Rhode Island, when I was young in my career and looking for stories for a summer reading program, probably. Well, if you're a storyteller and a book jumps off the shelf at you, you stop and pick it up. And when I found it, I realized it was a story I'd been looking for all my life. It's called Sleeping Ugly. And I started telling the story. I was so excited about it. I could tell it to children. I could tell it to adults. They each heard the story they were prepared to hear and loved it. And Jane Yolen was going to be the keynote speaker at a conference that spring in the Boston area. So I took my little copy of Sleeping Ugly and I went to her and said, "May I tell this and will you sign my book?" Later in the weekend, she and I were sitting next to each other in a story swap where everyone gets up and tells, and she leaned over and said, "Why don't you tell my story?" And I did. And she loved it. And we were friends for 40 years.
Well, that would definitely keep one's career going. You knew you were on the right track. So how does one begin? When it's time to tell a story, I would think the opening line of a story is the most important, I was born by the river in a little tent. I mean, how should one begin a story?
Well, I do think a strong beginning and a strong ending are very helpful to engaging and keeping your audience so that you can weeble and wobble a little bit there in the center. And I do tell my storytelling coaching students that start strong and end strong and give yourself grace in the middle. So it really depends. Often I will jump into the middle of something. Andrew, do be quick as you can be, might begin one story. Miserella was a beautiful princess, if you looked at what you could see on the outside. So it needs to be a line that draws the audience in. And the audience in a storytelling concert is the co-creator of the story because it happens somewhere between the lips of the teller, the ear of the listener, out in this liminal, imaginal space between us. The story is passing image by image from my mind to the mind of my listener. So getting the audience's attention and bringing them with me to the story world, that is an important part of the deal.
Oh, yeah, that's golden. I imagine telling a story orally, with your words, is a lot different from telling it, say, in a script like you do as a playwright as well. Or is it different?
It is different because the body communicate so much. We're told that 90% of our communication is paralinguistic. It's what our bodies are saying and what we're reading from the body of the audience members. If I have thought through and really considered the emotional nuance of a scene, the image of the world it's happening in, even if I say just a few words, the audience hears more than I said. On the page, if it's not there, they're not hearing it. So I'm also a writer, and I am working on revising a novella now. And one of the things I've learned is that I can tell a story with a lot less detail on the tongue. Mm-hmm. But on the page, I need to bring all the detail that my body and my imagination might have otherwise conveyed to a live audience.
Well, I have to ask, have you ever been to one of those live story slam type of events, a storytelling competition like the Monti or the Moth? Have you participated?
I did attend the Monti because a dear friend of mine, Janine Latus, has been a teller there. Mm-hmm. And that's the only time I've seen one in person. I've seen films of the Moth and I have heard the Moth on the radio. But I have told at the National Storytelling Festival on numerous occasions since 1984. So I do know what it's like to be in front of an audience who is picking out their favorite storyteller, even if there's no vote at the end.
That's right. So what are your thoughts about this rise in storytelling? I mean, I didn't grow up with the Moth or Monti, but they're still popular, and folks who didn't even think they had a story to tell are joining that, I don't know, fraternity.
Well, I think so many of us don't think we have a story to tell until we share a story and the listeners say, whoa, I never went through anything like that. Or, gosh, my parents would never have, so people respond and let you know, ooh, I have a story. I was actually hired to coach a young woman who's an actor in LA. She was going to be telling stories, personal stories, in an improv setting. So the audience was going to throw out cues and she was going to have to respond with a story. And then an improv troupe was going to act out the story that she told. And she felt like she had no stories. Well, this child, she was Japanese-Irish. And she went every summer to Japan to stay with her grandparents. I said, baby, you've got stories. And so all I did was throw her prompt, so that she could see that she had stories to tell, even if they lasted 3 minutes and they were done. So I think sometimes we have to find out from our listeners that we have got a story. I do want to say this, that the National Storytelling Festival, which takes place in Jonesboro, Tennessee, just over the mountains from Asheville, every first October weekend, is over 50 years old. So those of us who've come to storytelling because of the Monti in our neighborhood or the Moth on the radio may have missed out on this whole festival-based storytelling revival that's been going on for 3/4 of my life.
That's what I wanted to ask next. Are we in the middle of a revival?
Well, to tell you the truth, storytellers have never gone away. Though storytelling venues perhaps have disappeared, those little pubs, those little front porches of general stores in small towns, maybe those have gone, but that's how story finds its way to the Monti stage or finds its way to the National Storytelling stage, because human beings are storytelling animals. We have so much to say about what we know, we dream, we want. So
it's a true art form.
It is. It is an art form, and it's helpful if you practice what you're doing and know what you're doing. But every human being has a story.
Well, this is Due South on WUNC. I'm Leonida Inge. We're talking about storytelling this hour and how the oral tradition has become professionalized in the last decades. Here with me is Milbre Burch, a Grammy-nominated spoken word recording artist, a playwright, and an educator. Milbre, can I ask you now to maybe perform something short for us? I hear it's going to be scary. I got to get prepared.
I am happy to tell you a short story. In fact, that's what I call it, short story. The pink satin party dress was the last thing that the seamstress made before dying. When she came to claim her dress, the spoiled rich girl did not even give her condolences to the grieving family. Later, it was remembered that she had never looked more beautiful than she did that night, walking from table to table to table at her father's party, spreading smallpox.
That's scary, I must say. Thank you very much. How do you prepare to tell us? We know, like, I guess if you're playing soccer or you're an athlete or whatever sport, there's so many repetitions of running and whatever you do to get ready for something like that. But what do you do? What's your routine before you tell a story?
Well, because I came to storytelling from movement and physical theater, I find that my best way to rehearse is to walk and tell. So something about the small muscle of the tongue and the large muscles of the legs working together helps me get the words onto my tongue. If it is a literary story or one of the monologues that I've written, I might spend some extra time looking at the words or listening to the words as I want them to be spoken, and then I walk them. And in the days since Zoom came into our lives on a regular basis, I sometimes Zoom rehearse with friends, either in one-on-one or in small groups.
It makes sense thinking if you can walk it's kind of like a warm-up.
Yes.
It's warming up all parts of your body, your mind, maybe your tongue.
But I will say, too, that having practiced with a group of listeners from all over the country before I went to tell for my 9th time at the National Storytelling Festival in 2023, I practiced a new piece called Myth America that has 2 of my older monologues and 1 brand new one. And when I went to perform it on the stage, I suddenly realized that my listeners on Zoom had all had their sound turned down, so I didn't hear the sounds that an audience makes, which is part of the storytelling event, is listening and hearing.
You want them
and
to
seeing.
gasp?
Right,
Yes.
right. So I thought, I don't know how long this is because I've only rehearsed it with silent audiences. And in fact, it was longer than I had anticipated. So that was a real lesson for me coming back from Zoom to the live stage.
Oh, wow. What is the North Carolina Storytelling Guild? You've been a part of that.
I have, and it's a wonderful connection and community that meets together for several times during the year. There is a workshop that is held over a weekend out at Fort Caswell. There is a workshop that's held for a weekend at Wild Acres Retreat. And then there is the Old North State Storytelling Festival, which is produced by the Guild. It's everything from a kitchen table teller who just tells at home to nationally known people, to regional tellers, to folks who are just emerging as storytellers. So it's a wonderful community.
Do you see these organizations and groups growing, and not just growing in number, but maybe the folks who are taking part, maybe younger folks, or I don't know, the age range, maybe different cultures, finally taking part and being able to gain some support and interest in this, I call it art form.
It is an art form. Even the National Endowment has had to acknowledge that it is an art form. I think that numbers go up and down. Certainly the pandemic stopped every live performance cold in its tracks, and storytellers had to learn to pivot to do their work online. And in that same time, schools were having to spend what might have been their arts budget to bring in a teaching artist on picnic tables to put outside so that the children could eat without being inside and taking their masks off during those pandemic times. And to be honest, the arts funding in schools has not bounced back very rapidly since the lockdown came to an end. So every time you put a stop to arts funding, you make it a little harder for an artist to survive. And many of us seek day jobs so that we can afford some health insurance and afford to remain an artist and not have to lean on what we do as a creative person to pay every bill that we have. So it can be a very tricky thing. But story is not going anywhere. We just have to keep finding ways to find each other, to share our stories. And I think that idea of listening first, the most important skill any human being has is to listen first and share our stories, is part of what I hope will bring us back from where we are.
I am a big fan of young folks, especially, I guess, maybe 13 or 15 and younger in those oratorical contests.
Oh, yeah. It's very exciting to see them.
That is so exciting to me.
And, I go every year back to Columbia, Missouri, where my husband taught in the journalism school for 15 years for what they call the Missouri Scholars Academy, which is like a governor's honors program. So rising juniors from all over the state come to the campus for 3 weeks. And I tell stories to the ones who show up for my evening presentation. There is nothing more exciting than telling stories to teenagers who have chosen to come and listen. And I look out at them and I say, look around you. You're going to know some of the other students in this room for the rest of your life. I can tell you from experience that that's what happens. These are your peeps. Support each other in whatever it is you do and keep doing it.
Yes, small or big venues. Before we go, what do you have to say to folks who are out there listening right now and just still maybe feel a little nervous about maybe telling their story to an audience, somebody beyond the mirror in the bathroom?
Well, it is interesting because a lot of people are prepared to stand up in front of adults but afraid to tell in front of children. Children will tell you exactly what they think, so I think they've got that flipped. Finding ways to sneak up on storytelling so that perhaps you use a photograph or you use a piece of material culture from your house, maybe your grandmother's thimble, so that the focus of the audience is on the object or on the drawing or on the photograph. Take some of the heat off a new teller. There are ways to get your audience to participate. If the audience is participating, they're taking some of the heat off the new teller. So there are a lot of ways to just gently get brave and share stories. And some stories are meant to be silly. So try a tall tale because that's a ridiculous story that's meant to make the audience laugh. And you're meant to sound ridiculous when you tell it. So sometimes we're able to get over our stage fright by doing something like that. The most important advice is to keep breathing. Because if you hold your breath, that's fear. That's fear. But if you breathe into your fear, that's excitement.
That's excitement. Milbre Burch is a master storyteller who's been nominated for a Grammy. She's also an educator and a playwright. Milbre, thank you so much for joining us at Due South.
I was delighted to be here.
Well, in a moment, we'll speak with a longtime friend of the show, Ray Christian. He's a storyteller based in Western North Carolina, and he has some scary stories to tell and some very historical ones as well. All coming up on Due South. I'm Leonida Inge. You're listening to Due South on WUNC News. I'm Leonida Inge. It's our storytelling hour, and we've brought you some great voices so far. The growth of live competitive storytelling conferences, and culture in the U.S. is definitely a thing. One of our first guests on Due South is a well-known storyteller in Boone, North Carolina, who spent several years hosting the Moth Story Slam in Asheville. His name is Ray Christian, and he's one heck of a storyteller.
We had ways of taking care of ourselves when we were younger. Home remedies, if that's what you want to call them. Cure for ringworm? Tape a copper penny to the rash. Upset stomach? Eat white coal ash. Bleeding nose? Put salt pork in your nostrils. You get the picture.
That's Ray Christian telling a story about his life. Since we last spoke, his podcast, What's Ray Saying, has won a lot of awards. I think you won 3 Black Podcasting Awards for History, Editing, and Best Solo Host in 2024. Did you say you beat out Oprah, Ray? Oh, my goodness.
That's right.
And you won 2 Gold Signal Awards for History and People's Choice. Congratulations.
Right.
Yes.
Thanks.
Congratulations on your success and welcome back to Due South. Always glad to hear you. Ray Christian, what have you been up to? I know, I just love the name of your podcast. What's Ray saying? I always want to know what's Ray saying. And I hear you're working on a new season of that podcast. Tell me about it.
Absolutely. But during the period of time between the last major series that I put out, we've been keeping the feed warm with a lot of different things, some new ideas, some stuff that PRX has been allowing me to play with. Some things a little abstract, some things have some political, historic overtones. But the season that got in development right now is a response to the question, how did you learn about Black history? How did you learn about Black people? And put that to some historic background, some historic correlations and what people think. And I probably interviewed 40 or 50 people from various groups, from various backgrounds to get some perspective. But that's still developing. And that's one thing I've been involved in. Probably since we last spoke, I became an Appalachian storytelling fellow in that time frame, doing a little voiceover stuff, and been involved in some movie adventures, actually, strangely enough, and a documentary that's probably already aired or about to.
Tell me, is that what's on HBO about Burning Man?
Right. Yeah, Burning Man. Yeah.
So what were you doing at Burning Man, Ray? Come on.
Well, you don't put me on blast like that.
I just want to know. I just want to know what you liked about it. It wasn't you've gone several times.
Yeah. But so the way that started was I was actually approached after I had mentioned that Burning Man was on my bucket list about whether or not I was really going to actually go. To make a long story short, they actually came out here to the mountains and they kind of followed me from that all the way through the process, and probably over about a 4-year period. And now, boom, it finally came to light. And I won't say too much about it because there are elements of it that I myself, well, you'll have to see.
I know.
But that's something.
But I need you to tell our audience who may not know about this kind of hipster festival. Tell them what Burning Man is.
Well, Burning Man is it's an event. Some people say it's a festival that takes place once a year out in a Nevada desert that people come together, and for 1 week they create community. Now, it's been going on for about 50 years, and it's evolved into art. There's probably a lot of videos and clips and other documentaries about it that might paint it as being just a festival of debauchery or whatnot. But it's not that. It's a lot of things to a lot of different people. Well, that's Burning Man. Yeah.
Well, I think it would definitely lead to a lot of stories, and I'm glad. I mean, your bucket list is full now. So I'd like to move on to a story. I like your stories a lot. And you're saying, like, when you're a podcast, you're going to be talking about, like, how did folks learn about Black history? But you have a story to tell about, I guess, being a Black man in Watauga County. So,
well, you know, when you think about where stories come from, I mean, you live the life and then you just talk about it. And when I moved out here probably 30 years ago now, I remember people telling me, you do not want to live out there, man. There's never been any Black family ever lived out there in that part of the county. You see, just 10 minutes outside of the town of Boone, you're in rural Appalachia. Okay, and I probably lived maybe 25 minutes outside of town. And people told me you would never going to see another Black person out here. And that's something that I'd have to get used to while I was there. But I tell you, you know, if I was living in a big city in North Carolina, a dark city like Durham, and
the
somebody
Bull City?
approached.
Yeah.
Yeah. and somebody was to approach me with what I thought was a ridiculous question about Black history, I would probably just dismiss them and let one or the other tens of thousands of Black people respond to that question for them, because I'd be tired that day. But out here, where I'm the only one, my family, the only family, for a lot of the white people out here, especially the young ones, I'm the only Black person they'll ever come in contact with. So rather than be dismissive, I had to think about the idea that if I am the only Black person they're ever going to meet, maybe I don't want to be too dismissive or mean to them. I stop and I explain, this is why you probably don't want to use this phrase. This is why this is a dumb question. Okay, this is why this happens like that. And so when I first moved up here, the kids, they would run up to the car because they'd be excited to see me, like, well, it's the only Black face. And it went from them running up going like, hey, Ray, to later on it was, hey, Ray, to later on, hey, Ray, to later on, hey, Ray, this is my wife. Hey, Ray, this is my kids. And so I've watched a generation of kids grow up. And to be more illustrative of what it means to be just the only one, at least every year I try to be naked on my birthday. It's
in the
symbolic.
Middle of the street. When you walk the streets naked?
Yeah, I try. I try to get myself in a situation where I can do that. And from year to year, some years I can't accomplish it because I have some responsibilities or something going on, or people would try to mess it up, in some way. So I had a good year where I was able.
Well, I need to know, when is your birthday? I need to get it. When is your birthday?
Oh, July the 31st.
Okay, thank you. I'm writing that down. Okay, keep going.
July the 31st. Wherever I'm at, I'm going to be naked. Now you know.
Now I know.
I got a little gazebo out here, not far from the house, by the creek. And I was sitting down there, naked, enjoying my birthday. White woman driving up the dirt road in a car, painfully slow. I'm probably 50 yards off the road sitting in my gazebo, and she just drives by real slow. Don't say a word, just stares at me. About 2 weeks later, we have this little country store. It's called Plan B. I'm down at the store, and I heard this woman come in, and she said, I was driving by that gazebo the other day, and that was a bear just sitting up in there. Only here could a naked Black man be mistaken for a bear.
Only in Watauga.
Yeah. If you come into town, it's like 5 of us. Yeah. And we already decided if they said the suspect was Black, we had to get together. Y'all need to let one of us did it. It's probably not me. But other than that, we're holding things up out here in rural Appalachia.
I'm glad you and not me. Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Ray. Now, I've been laughing so hard I can't read my script, but this is Due South on WUNC News. And I'm deep in storytelling conversation with Ray Christian, the host of the podcast, What's Ray Saying, and a longtime storyteller. Definitely, we hear you on Snap Judgment on NPR, so thank you for those stories. So, Ray, you know what I want to know now?
My birthday, right?
I already got that. That's written down.
Okay. Oh.
I got that down. I'd like to know, when you talk to young folks and they're trying to, I guess, do what you do, or even to have the courage to get on a stage at a Moth or a Monti and tell a story, how do they begin? They may have an idea of something in their life that they just want to get out, but what advice do you give them?
If you've experienced it, you can talk about it. And sometimes the easiest thing to do is not try to be clever. To say what's natural and to the point, follow the path of least resistance. Sometimes you may have to stutter or repeat yourself. That's how humans communicate. because the only major factor in any story is time. If you have a lot of time, you can curate your own story. If you have 5 minutes and you're just being told, that's all the time that you have. So my piece of advice is, if you've experienced it, just start talking and not be afraid to be vulnerable. But understand this, if you're vulnerable, that means that there are some people who will not like your story. But that's all part of it.
Yeah, you
that's
got
the
to be
beginning.
prepared.
That's the entry point.
Yeah.
That's the entry point.
Do you remember one of the first stories you were able to tell in front of a live audience? Because I'm sure you've been entertaining family and friends for a long time. I remember your stories, I think even when you were in the Army.
Right. That's probably when it got the most intense for me, was my time in the Army, because a lot of people came from a lot of different places with a lot of different storytelling styles. And I didn't realize that people could tell stories on a level of almost being violent, and how fast they could quip off stories and spin them and reject that. I hadn't been accustomed to that. And it seems that exists in a lot of places. And it's a time thing again. It comes down to time. People can quickly get off the story, quickly, get the joke, the punchline in there, and can do it well, can do it fast. And then the rest of us, to various degrees of not being able to do that.
I think a good story could save your life. Give me an example.
Goodness.
Tell me.
Oh my goodness, save your life. Yeah, like, was it you who did that? Oh my God. So you don't get me in some trouble, but I'll just say to a short, no, I don't know what I want to say. I'm going to let, you want to hear it anyway.
Yes, I do.
So the short of this, I'm going to modify this a little bit. I was in a place where practical jokes were taken to the extreme. And this one particular thing that was not a practical joke, but I was trying to get revenge. And what I did in short was I super glued some razor blades under the door handle of his car. Now, in my genius, creeping up, putting the super glue and the razor blades under the car, I got it. Nobody's seeing me. I'm getting away from here. But then I think I hear some footsteps coming up. So I try to pull away to run, but I can't, because I super glued my fingers to the car.
Oh my.
But I'm so scared when I hear the footsteps coming up that I pull my skin off my fingers and rip them off the car. And so I'm running, and I'm in the bathroom, and I'm putting water under my fingers, and it's burning and they're stinging. And I heard some screaming and hollering down the hallway. Boom, 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 boom. The Sarge I was trying to get revenge with, he comes pounding in the bathroom, and he said, "Somebody put these razor blades under my car, cut my fingers." And he looked at me, and he said, "You." I said, "Yeah, somebody did it to me too." He said, "Oh." He would have killed me.
That was quick. You got out of that one, Ray.
I ain't gonna tell you nothing else.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Due South be putting people on blast.
Would you?
But what we would be doing down here in the hollows and yeah.
Well, I don't.
Where the story's at.
I don't want to get you in any more trouble.
I'm gonna come up to the studio and see what's going on in the
Please do.
Lot,
Please
what's going on
do. We'll be waiting. Ray, before we go, I'd just like to know, do you have a favorite place to tell a story? I mean, the stage, the podcast, at church? I mean, I don't know.
My favorite place would probably be just sitting on the porch, sitting with a friend at a table, maybe outside on a park bench. I'm freer. There's no audience. I can take it in and you can take me in. If I had to pick one spot, that would be it.
Up there in Watauga County.
That's right.
Rural. Your dog's barking in the background. Didn't you say you have chicken and goats too?
Yeah, chicken and goats. And we do have bear, by the way.
Oh my goodness. Ray Christian is a storyteller and host of the podcast What's Ray Saying with PRX. Also, you may remember some of Ray's stories on NPR on Snap Judgment. And for a long time, he definitely spent several years hosting the Moth Story Slam in Asheville. Ray Christian, thank you for being on Due South.
Thanks for having me.
This is Due South on WUNC News. I'm Leonida Inge.
Each story you hear on Planet Money starts with a question. What happens if we refund tariffs? Why are groceries so expensive? At NPR, we stand for your right to be curious because the forces shaping our world can be hard to see. Follow NPR's Planet Money wherever you get your podcasts and start seeing how the economy really works.